So what I'm going to do to kick this off is I'm going to do a very amended version of the keynote that I did. And so when they approached me to do a keynote, a lot of times, it's sort of like, oh, I got to gather all my thoughts. But when I heard about this topic, I was like, wait a second, I don't even need to write this. I'm just going to go out to our community and I'm going to ask folks what they wish they knew. And we're going to get to you're going to get to meet one of the people that responded to that. But I thought before I bring her on, I want to give you a glimpse at some of the things that were shared with me, and then you in the audience, I hope let's make this a dialogue today. So if something resonates, if there's something that you wish you knew, drop it into chat or Q&A. Let's riff off of all the things that we've learned. Let's share what we've learned, and let's figure out how we can make life better for folks that are sort of faced with some of these decisions that we're going to be talking about today. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you is it's sort of these were two statements that people said that they wish they knew. I'm wrestling with the decision to stay and age in place in my long-term home of 50 plus years. I wish I knew that, and then somebody else said, I wish I knew that all the stuff that I had really didn't matter. It was so hard for me to think about downsizing because of all my stuff. I delayed it for years and it feels great now. I don't know if that resonates with any of you folks out there, but I know I talk to an awful lot of people that are sort of walking that tightrope. Do I stay or do I go? And then what do I do with all my stuff? Okay. The next sort of series of comments that I received from our community members is what I wish I knew is about Medicaid. We didn't think it will be needed, but I've learned the hard way to act as if you will apply. It saves so much time and heartache. And somebody else said, I wish my mom would have talked to an elder law attorney. Not having things in place was a headache for me and my brother. Um, Somebody else said, I wish I knew how siloed and specialized neurologist, probably any medical specialist, can be. What I've learned is to push folks for more answers and to be a pest. And I'm going to give a plug for a discussion we're having next week with a patient advocate. A patient advocate is a profession very few people know about, and they can help you with that push. Okay. Let's see. This is a pretty lengthy thing here, but let me say that there was something here. The end of life stuff, that it's not too scary, and hospice really helped. And this one of the main things here on this slide is just sort of learning to be an advocate for a parent. I hear this a lot is that and understanding how to communicate with our parents. So I'm going to pause. Let me stop share. I'm going to pause and the and I want to just double check our Q&A and our chat here, make sure that there's nothing in there that resonated. And I want to welcome one of the folks that responded in a very amazing fashion when I first um, uh, was preparing for this. Glenna Crooks. So Glenna, if you want to jump on the stage, and the Glenna, again, thanks for participating today and coming and sharing some of your personal experience of what you wish you knew. I know there's going to be a lot of talking points here, and you've really prepared with a list. But I would before we jump into that, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are, and what led to you sort of going into this elder care experience.
And Steve, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk not just about me, but about my brother Jim. and my sister-in-law, Nancy, because what I'm going to present today is really a collaboration between the three of us, as was the caregiving process. Now, my mom's goal was to remain independent in her own home, and we supported that 100%. Now, at age 90, however, she started a slow decline, and by the age of 93, her birthday was last November, it was clear that this was no longer going to be possible. Now, she rejected our attempt to arrange for part-time in-home care, paid care. So on March 1st of this year, we met Denise Heiss at Village Veranda in Lady Lake, Florida, and Denise worked a miracle because she showed Mom how wonderful assisted living could be. Now, she's been there now for 4 months. She has settled in really well, and she is really happy there. Now, this was a new experience for us. Our family has never experienced age-related decline before. We die with our boots on. So, but that being said, if any three people should have been able to navigate this, it was us. So, and here's why. Jim and Nancy were hospice volunteers for over 20 years, going to nursing homes. At the time that the more intense caregiving started, they were retired. They lived in the same neighborhood, and they are really awesome, savvy, well-informed, capable people. Now, as for me, I was a Eucharistic minister going to nursing homes for 5 years, but then I have a professional background too. I'm the co-author of a paper on the management of Alzheimer's patients for managed care. I've helped to develop Alzheimer's treatment guidelines for primary care. I've received an award for my approach to Alzheimer's caregiving, and I've worked with geriatric psychiatrists on geriatric depression. I am a former presidential appointee. I was the nation's chief health policy advisor for 5 years, and I was also a global vice president in a Fortune 50 company. I'm pretty wired into healthcare. If we needed help, we could get it. In addition to that, it wasn't just about us. Mom was a good neighbor, as she helped a lot of people along the way. And so there were all kinds of people who jumped in to help, and gladly so. So by the time we were hitting the wall, just to give you an idea, Mom had 9 part-time unpaid caregivers, 7 of whom were local and 2 of whom were distant, me being one. I'm 1,000 miles away in Philadelphia.
Wow.
So we've collaborated on a list of 10 big things that we wish we had known. And on the basis of that, 5 things we would have done differently if only we had known.
Okay.
So what I'd like to do is go through those 10, Steve,
Yep.
Very quickly, and then the 5. And then if anybody has questions and they want me to dive deeper on one thing or another, I'll be glad to do that.
Yeah, and we're just going to use this Glenna's example as a starting point, and then I'd love to hear from you all about your experiences, or you can kind of riff off some of the things that Glenna's talking about. So hopefully, Glenna, you can see the slide deck, and the audience can as well.
Yes, I can. Thanks, Steve. So here's what we wish we knew. So first of all, that overwhelm can sneak up on you and you can hit the wall suddenly, and out of the blue. I mean, one day you think you're fine, the next day you're out of gas. You just hit the wall. The second thing we wish we knew is just how bad the physical and mental and emotional health impact would be, but not just for us, for Mom too. And especially as our ability to help her declined, that made it even harder on her. Third, we never anticipated how tough it would be for us as adult children. And I want to put some emphasis on children. Providing senior care is much harder than raising a child because of the parent-child dynamics. In the words of my brother, we didn't do for Mom what she needed. We did what she wanted because we were being good kids. Next, that the helpers that we were so glad to have, in some cases, were actually sabotaging our efforts, and we're making it harder for us to provide the best care and make the best decisions for Mom. Then it was also, we didn't anticipate how hard it would be for us to get information that we could trust about senior care, and especially when it came to assisted living. Now, here's one though, we never in a million years knew that assisted living would be so beneficial, and not just for us, but beneficial for mom too. She is so much better off right now. I mean, aside from the worsening vascular dementia that she has, it's almost like she's turned the clock back by 5 or 10 years. She's healthier, she's happier, she's more engaged, she's more active. I mean, it's given her a whole new lease on life. Now, the other thing is we didn't know that we could come through this in such good shape with one another. We really weren't that good of siblings before. We didn't have a close relationship. We weren't at war, but we just weren't close. Well, we have become very close and very loving. And I now consider my brother and my sister-in-law to be among my absolute best friends. We're a team now. We also didn't realize how hard it was going to be to manage her affairs. Now, by the way, she had all of the legal documents in place that we needed. They were all up to date. They were all done by a Florida attorney, and it didn't matter because any official we were dealing with, whether it was real estate or selling a car or whatever, was so fearful that we were somehow engaging in elder financial abuse that they made it really very tough for my brother, who, since he's local, holds her power of attorney. Now, I'm a yoga teacher. I do mindfulness meditation. I coach other people. I know all the tricks of the trade. I had no idea how useless self-care information and self-care advice could be. When you hit that wall, it just doesn't matter anymore. And then finally, and this is really more directed at me than my brother and sister-in-law, I had no idea what this was going to do to my business and the chaos that it was going to create in my life. I have not balanced a checkbook or looked at a credit card statement in 2 years. I have 2 companies, and the tax filing for them and for my personal taxes for 2021 still is not done. It's only now I'm going to be able to start doing that. So what would we have done differently? You want to go on to that, Steve? Okay. So knowing this, here's what we all agree we would have done. We would have set a broader goal. So rather than the goal of helping mom to live in her home for the rest of her life independently, we would have set a goal to do what is best for the entire family, for our health, for the quality of our life and our finances. And by the way, I don't want to pass this point without saying that my brother manages the financial side of my mom's life. He actually did a full cost analysis, and it is less expensive for my mother to be in assisted living than for her to have remained in her home with only 3 or 4 hours a day, 5 days a week of paid caregiving, which was a stunning realization for us. We would have acted more like adults and less like children. So we would have made much better decisions for mom. We would have recognized and we would have dealt with the saboteur that we had a lot more aggressively. Then we have a particular thing. Mom was firing every primary care physician that she had. She had a variety of specialists, but she refused to have consistent care from a primary care provider. If she had done that, we would have gotten the diagnosis of vascular dementia sooner. I mean, as it was, we didn't get it until after she moved to Village Veranda, and they arranged for her to have that kind of care. That would have made a big difference in what we were doing. And we would have encouraged that move to assisted living sooner. We really thought that assisted living was the beginning of the end. We thought it was an admission of failure. And we now realize it wasn't an admission of failure. It wasn't an admission of defeat. It was the best possible decision for mom and also for us.
Wow. You really touched on a lot of topics, and I see that it's got some follow-up here in chat. This is perfect and exactly what I dreamed about when I woke up this morning that this conversation would lead to. So first off, Glenna, thanks for sharing and being so transparent on your journey. And I know we're going to jump back to some of these bullet points because folks have also have um, have mentioned those. First off, for Sonia, yes, I will share this PowerPoint as well as the recording and the chat transcript with everyone. It'll be at proaging.com this afternoon. And then I also want to give a shout out to my friend Dr. Craig Clark, who's I know is in the audience, and I want to sort of I invited Craig to come to this discussion because Craig was a fellow cycling enthusiast with me, and several years ago he suddenly had an accident, and I have never forgotten what he said because as he was going through his recovery, he said, "Steve, one thing for sure that I try to encourage everybody to know about is disability insurance is very, very important." And I think I want to sort of spotlight that because, as you said, Glenna, your family history said that everybody, dies with their boots on, that they're working in the fields right up till the end of days. And none of us have a crystal ball. And our ability to adapt and remain positive and reinvent ourselves is such a valuable skill, and it's so difficult. And my hat's off to Craig because I think he's done a marvelous job. And Craig, if you want to make some comments, just raise your little virtual hand there, and I can open up your mic and you can elaborate if you've got more things to say. But at any point in the discussion today. But what I want to jump into some of these comments. First off, Diane says, "I wish I knew that in Fairfax County, there's a number for older adults and disabilities that can point me in the right direction to help, or others who qualify for getting it when needed." I will tell you that not only is it in Fairfax County, it's nationwide. It is the area agencies on aging. And if you're in Des Moines, if you're in Albuquerque, and anywhere in this country, there is an area agency on aging that can help you. 1-800-677-1116. I'll make sure to drop that in there. And it's a fantastic place to start. So Diane, thanks for sharing that one. Let's see, GM says, "I wish that I had known the impacts that long distance caregiving for my parents would have had on my husband and children." Yeah, I hear this regularly. It's taking 2 weeks and sharing that role with your brother and sister. And Glenna, was that something that you and you had mentioned your brother and sister-in-law were local there in Florida, but I imagine you got on a plane and went down there and helped out from time to time.
Yeah, and I have one insight from that. So it was not unusual, for example, for me around the holidays to go and spend a month. And so the last, like for example, in 2019, I spent a month. I was really looking forward to doing all the cooking, and I actually thought I was going to finish my next book while I was away. Well, it turned out that it was a good day if I could both take a shower and brush my teeth once. I never brushed my teeth twice. Now, I always wondered, what's harder? Is it being local or is it being distant? And I will tell you that it's much harder to be distant. And that's because you get the call, there's an emergency, you do the Googling, you reach out to your connections, you come up with some of an answer, you send it back, and then you may not hear anything. The other thing too is, and I see another question about why self-care doesn't work, is because of the crises, your body is pumping so much adrenaline and so much cortisol that, that chemical cascade lasts, the half-life is 8 hours. So I would get a call in the morning, it would blow up my day. Now, the antidote to that is being active and doing something. So so the ability at the end for me to go to Florida, spend a week, clean out the house, get it ready for sale, actually helped. to deal with all the stresses. So, you know, that would be my comment about that.
Yeah, yeah. Tiffany had said, what made self-care useless and what did you do instead? So thanks for answering that question. And I think that this is so many people come out of the elder care or caregiving situation with so much insight on what makes them tick because we're all different, you know. So somebody might go to a mindfulness workshop and be like, wow, you know, this changed my life. Whereas others are a little bit different. And I think in Glenna's example, it's just figuring out what works best for you. Now, Lauren asks, how did the helpers sabotage? I think in one of your points, you had a saboteur. You said that you dealt with, but can you share with us that story?
Yeah, we actually had a saboteur and a mini saboteur. So I'll talk about the mini saboteur first. This was a wonderful neighbor who would come over most nights with a bottle of wine, which is not what mom needed. But the biggest problem was somebody who viewed mom as a surrogate parent because her own mom had passed away. And so during the time, for example, we were trying to get mom to see a primary care physician. Mom was opting to go to an urgent care center instead. We tried to say, we're not going to take you there and wait for 4 hours because they're triaging. We will take you to any primary care visit you want. We will stay there. We'll bring you home, whatever. That person stepped in and took mom to urgent care, which then delayed the diagnosis. In addition to that, at least 3 physicians had told mom that she was lactose intolerant. This person would say, oh, I don't think you are. I think it's just stress, and take mom out for ice cream. And the consequences of that were not pretty. So it was things like that. And we tried for a long time to negotiate with her, to give her information, literally to beg her not to do it, but she kept doing it. And by the end, by the way, I was ready to get a restraining order to keep her away from mom because it was blocking everything we were trying to do.
Great. Okay. I see that Craig has got his hand raised, so I'm gonna open up his mic, but I want to read this question or this comment from GM, who is absolutely, I love this one. Thank you for sharing this. I wish I'd known that stopping from work for 5 years to care for my parents would have significant impact on my own future Social Security earnings. And GM, if you want to jump on, you can raise your hand and elaborate more on this. But what I will tell everybody is I've been doing this for 32 years, and I have heard this comment too often, in that where folks sacrifice their own retirement, their own kids' college education because mom and dad were not financially able to take care of themselves the way that the family wanted them to be taken care of. And I am constantly telling folks, if you can, draw a line in the sand. What is your threshold? I mean, some families can afford to pay for mom's assisted living because she doesn't have or home care because she doesn't have the savings, but there are options out there, and area agencies on aging are a great place to find them for the lower income and middle and creative ways, you know, to keep mom in a safe environment with the money that she's got. And let's see. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So yeah. So Craig, there you're okay. So that's my little rant there. Craig, hopefully you raised your hand, so I hope that you're not going to say, Steve, why did you share that story about me there? You're always so thoughtful. What are some what I wish I knew points that you might have to share?
Good. Well, my first question is, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. So yes, I thought about what are those things that really, I wish I'd known would have been helpful. And a lot of them are tied to what I've learned is helpful now. So I'll just simply go through that. One is, as you mentioned, that disability insurance is really important. It's important to get it. Unfortunately, it's hard to get these days, but it's important to get. And the
And
younger you
long-term
get it, the
care
better.
insurance is
Yes.
hard to get too. Yeah.
Another one is it's really helpful and important to find and organize pictures. When I was going through help my parents transition out of their home, it really helped if I could show them pictures of things because it woke up their brains and their hearts at the same time. So find pictures and organize. It's really important to take notes, both on what's going on with them and what's going on with you, because it's really easy to forget things. And it's good to go back and take a look at your notes. And it's really helpful to record and make it easy to find things like lists of anniversaries and birthdays and when people graduate from college and things like that, because when you're connecting with family and friends, those are the kind of things that are really helpful. Here's a really big one. Sometimes you're overwhelmed by all the junk that's going on. And it's very important to remember this. The powerful, important things so often are simple and small, and you overlook them. So ask yourself, okay, what's a simple, small thing in front of me that makes a difference? Another one is really important, again, is to understand what charges your internal battery and drains it, gives you energy or not. And the same thing for your parents. What makes them energized or not? And the more you know about it, the better you can do. It's really important to remember how important it is for you and the people you're dealing with is to simply belong to each other and to make connections with other people in a way that I want to belong to you in a good way. Here's a big one that kind of goes to that simple and small things. Again, when overwhelmed with what's going on, say, okay, what's happening today? What's happening right now? It's hard to do. It really is. Another one, so often we're focused on how do we stop this one and start the next one, which is an on-off switch. And really, so often it's a transition. And knowing that makes it a whole lot easier. With your friends and your family, boy, another important one. It's so important to remember that it's really good to give to them and give them in a caring way. I learned this with my injury. It's so many of the people who I had given to in my life were so good at giving back to me. It was so great to happen. I never expected it, but it happened.
Well, I have to say something, Craig, and thank you for sharing these, but that's one thing that you illustrate is, and I'm actually almost tearing up, is that anybody that knew Craig before his accident, this guy is just a living, breathing positivity and dropping anything to help his friends and family. And I think also the amount of support that came to you initially after your accident was pretty significant. And I hope that that's held up. I know that that's a challenging thing is keeping your network going for a longer period of time.
Yes, I agree with you completely, Steve. I think keeping it going is so helpful. And here's two things that really helped me with that. One is being very good about thanking people for what happens. And one of the things that's a good reminder of that is to say, okay, what am I grateful for? You know, what's happening in life today that I'm grateful for? And those remembering that is really helpful. And with those people that are helping you, collaborate with them. It's not just an on-off give and take. It's how do we do this together? The togetherness and give and take with care is so important. I want to say that, yes, what was said earlier about moving out of the home is so impressive that it's so good to remember that not being at home can make you younger and happier. When my parents moved out of their home, they'd been there for decades, into assisted living, my father got 10 years younger. It was so impressive. And then I guess I'll leave with one more thing, and that's a thing I heard recently that is so good. It's one of those simple things that great to remember every day, and that is put one foot in front of the other and lead with love.
I love it.
That's it.
Craig, thanks so much for sharing those, and you're a great role model and inspiration.
Well, thank you
So
very much.
thank you. Okay, let's get back to some of the comments here. And okay, Glenna, I think this is for you. Did your mom have long-term care insurance?
No, she did not. But I will tell you that she has substantial enough resources that she can pay for any form of care that she might need.
And that's, I mean, just when I talk to families, if your parents have the insurance, the planning, and the assets, there are so many choices out there for them, which is wonderful. For a lot of us, the caught between the cracks group, the folks that may not have savings and assets, it's even more important for that group to plan ahead. And this is one of the what I wish I know stuff is, as was referenced with the Medicaid, is that if you know somebody that's going to probably need Medicaid, it's best to start doing the research right now.
Steve, if I could comment on that too, though, I know, granted, by the time we got to this point, we were running on fumes, and this was not good for mom either. She was declining. We got the last available unit at Village Veranda. Now, if I'm not sure what we would have done if there had not been a unit available. Clearly, there were some other places we might have been able to find a place for her, but we didn't like them, and it was not the quality we wanted for her. So what I would say is that as well argues for starting early before you're at the end of your rope.
Yeah. And Glenna, we got a bunch of good questions here, guys. Don't worry, I'm going to get to them all. But I want you to talk about one of the points on your list is getting information about senior care. So because I know there's some providers in the audience, and this is useful to hear a consumer's experience. So elaborate on that a little bit. Getting information, what were some of the challenges?
Yeah, now again, I want to make sure that you understand the context. We were at the end of our rope. And so when we're up Googling at 11 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning, the last thing we wanted to do was put information into some site to tell people about our mom's situation when we didn't really know who they were or what they did, what their role was, and then wait until their office hours before we could get a call back. And I didn't trust that, frankly. I wasn't sure if there was money changing hands under the table and we were being sent to one place or service or another because of some arrangement that I didn't understand that wasn't going to be good for mom. And then in addition to that, the websites that we found for assisted living communities, I've now learned from you to call them, is really also not good. I mean, the drone videos are nice, but we needed something that was layers and layers deeper than that. And I will tell you that we were very surprised to find out that assisted living for her was going to be so affordable, but they're not even price ranges. I mean, if they had said this is going to be $15,000 or $20,000 a year, that's a very different kind of a decision than if it's $4,000 or $5,000 a year. And but we couldn't get that in real time. It was difficult to really see. Here's a good example. Who are the staff at the facility? Who are the executives at the community? What is their background? I use LinkedIn a lot. Can I go on LinkedIn and find them? Can I see what their work history is? Can I see if they posted anything? Can I see if they're thought leaders in the field in any way? Couldn't do that. So I wish that the information had been more robust, had been more transparent, and that we didn't have to go through some third party and wait in order to get it.
So, yeah, so what I gleaned from that is it's a lot of, Glenn is a great example of a caregiver or a loved one who is using the internet to gather information in the evenings and before she picks up the phone to call, sort of stumbling into the aggregators, which we all stumble into, is one challenge where you think you're calling a community, but you're calling a search service. But then the other thing that I picked up on that I know a lot of communities do this, but it's a good practice, is having transparent pricing and having bios of all your staff, because that can be an impressive thing that might lead you to picking up the phone in the morning and calling that place.
Well, and Steve, I'll raise one other thing, because this is content that's going in my next book. 40% of adult Americans live on average 700 miles from family. So thank heaven my brother and sister-in-law were living in Florida and had not chosen to stay in Indiana, where we're from, when they retired. I don't know what we would have done if Jim and Nancy were not local and couldn't get in the car and drive around and take a look at places. So I'm not unusual. I'm 40% of adult Americans, and this is the only way we're going to begin to get information is online.
Great. Okay, let me get back to these because I want to make sure we get through all of these. And folks, throw more things on the pile if there's comments you want to share, what have you. We've got Joe Sperling says, have a list of the your loved one's electronic passwords. That's a really good thing to have. I agree, Joe, because everything's digital. If you can't get into the bank account or even their email account, that's tough. Mary Lee, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on what Glenna was just saying. One resource that we refer to pretty regularly for families, particularly those who are remote from their loved one, is to try and connect them with geriatric care managers. That makes a huge difference when you have somebody who's aware of the local resources, can meet with you and your loved one, and then do an analysis of what might be your best options, and also steer clear of things that are not going to be helpful. But I think it's a really wonderful resource. People don't know about that.
I will tell you that when I stumble into people, usually the first thing that they say is, I wish I knew that aging life care managers were out there when I was caring for my mom, because we didn't know about it. And thankfully I know about it now with my dad. The other thing in a little different genre is hospice, is that most people are so nervous about hospice and end of life discussions and this, that, and the other. And usually when they are connected with hospice and they make that connection, they're like, oh, I wish I knew about this, and I wish I had used this phone number earlier. But the good thing is they're sharing that, and for if they need it in the future, they know about it.
Steve, one other thing I wanted to mention, I put in the chat, if you have siblings or other family members who want to help, let them, but also just figure out whose strengths are what they are. You may be the one that's great at holding your mother's hand and getting her through things emotionally, and don't expect that of your brother, who's really good at handling her finances. So, accept people for what they have to offer and let them help in the best way for them.
Yeah, and Mary Lee, you probably hear this, and Glenna alluded to it as well, is that, Glenna's outcome is fantastic, is that a lot of the conversations that we have are a call from a sibling that is sort of like, my brother and I don't see eye to eye on on this issue with my mom, and or we're not talking, or we disagree. And that's another reason I always, for those folks, say aging life care is your best bet, because that person is advocating for mom and doesn't really, they're going to listen to what you have to say, but it's mom who they're concerned about. You want to jump in on the sibling topic, Glenna?
Yeah, I would. And let me tell you, it was Deborah Hollisey, who some of you may know, who was very helpful to us in this. When she told me, she said, just because you grew up in the same household doesn't mean you grew up in the same thing. And what the breakthrough was for Jim and I is that we really started talking about what it was like to grow up in that family. And we started to see the family through different eyes. And that helped us, to come together really well. And I did see somebody who said, well, I guess it was Mary Lee, who said, focus on your strengths. My brother's really good on the financial side. I am much better at manipulating my mom. So, she would hang up on me in the middle of a phone call, and I called her, and I called my brother, and I said, is mom mad at me? He said, no, she can't hear. She thinks the conversation is over. Well, I know what matters to mom. And so I wrote her a letter because I knew we couldn't have this conversation on the phone. And I said, mom, because I know she values her intellect and the way that people perceive her as being intelligent. And I said, when people can't hear, other people think they might have Alzheimer's. She went out that day and got a hearing aid. So, so it really is. I mean, it's sort of in the gross ways that you can divide the workload, but also in some of those more subtle ways as well.
No, great stuff. Let's see. Jose, what percentage of the population will have access to assisted living? I did a quick Google search, and I've heard this stat before, is less than 4% of the population will be in a nursing home, and less than 2% will be in assisted living. And then part of that is what percentage of the population can afford assisted living, which is primarily a private pay care. These are challenges. This is a small percentage of the population, but again, it goes back to my crystal ball statement, is that for many of us, like Glenna's relatives, we're going to die with our boots on. We're going to go through life, and we're going to be at home, and we're going to have health changes, and we may not be in a position where we're moving to, or where assisted living is a choice. Let's see. Okay, Karen says, and actually I see Joe Sperling is on this discussion. Joe, this might be a good one for you to throw into comments. She says, is it still important to get disability insurance when you have long-term care insurance? Disability insurance, and Joe, you can chat on this. Disability insurance just replaces income that you have when you're working. So if you're working right now and you have an accident, disability insurance would be an income replacement vehicle, whereas long-term care insurance would be something that pays for specific long-term care that's defined in your policy. Joe can probably elaborate on that a little bit better. And let's see, Mary Lee, share responsibilities with family members based on their strengths. Joan says, people need to know there are great benefits of Medicare Advantage plans, but there are also disadvantages. For instance, not being able to go to just any rehab or skilled nursing center, since the center must have a contract with one of the specific managed Medicare plans, and the plans limit the number of centers that they issue contracts. This is a great one, Joan. And again, I hear this with prescriptions a lot. Medicare Advantage, you need a specific prescription, but it's not approved on your Medicare Advantage plan. this is something, again, it takes some research and time, but there are folks out there that can help you do this. So for example, one of the guys we work with is one of our positive aging champions is John Norris of oh shoot, I'll drop his Medicare. They help people make those choices and figure out what your needs are and what plan fits the best. Lori Sutton says, as a geriatric therapist, I am not a fan of Medicare Advantage plans, generally speaking. Okay, I mean, again, everybody's situation is customized, and all it takes is seeing one person that has a horrible experience, and it's sort of like, holy cow. Okay. And Catherine says, the Conversation Project is a great free resource for English for EOL end of life conversations. The Conversation Project is a great resource. Yes. End of life conversations. Again, it's one of those things that a lot of people that I hear, a lot of people, it's difficult to have end of life conversations, but once you start having them, it can bring deep meaning to your life and those people around you. And it makes it easier when you've got another loved one that may be approaching end of life. Sonia says, Steve, you might want to do this topic as a monthly series. I hope people agree. I think this is very therapeutic and interesting. Let's see. Do you have any suggestions for finding a great aging life care manager? Tom DeMuth asks, go to the Aging Life Care Manager website. You just type it in to Google, and I'll drop this into chat, and find 2 or 3 that are in your area. You can add your zip code in, what have you, and have 2 or 3 conversations. Again, take the advice of your loved ones and people around you. So if somebody says, hey, give Cindy a call Cindy, but go to Aging Life Care and talk to a couple more, because just like attorneys, not just like attorneys, but like any profession, there's different specialties. And I've found that Aging Life Care managers sometimes specialize, but it's also a personal connection. This person, these Aging Life Care managers will become part of your family, because this is a very emotional and family-oriented conversations and decisions. And then Joe does say, on the topic of on disability and long-term care, that different coverages for disability and different coverages for long-term care insurance. Medicare portal. John Norris is with Medicare. Thank you for sharing that. He's a great resource for Medicare Advantage. Okay. GM says, my overarching regret for my care partnering years with my parents is that I didn't discuss with mom and dad that the solutions we chose would impact the entire family system, not just mom and dad. Holy cow. That is probably one of the best statements I've ever heard. That it's not a family that it's a family system solution to make the best endings for them. Adult children are impacted emotionally and financially, as are their young children. These solutions could be optimized. You know, GM, I have to say that is a very powerful statement. Is that, and I think most parents, that when you hear challenges, as mom and dad are, they're not sharing, they're not going to do anything, they're not going to have a conversation with us. And if they knew the impact that was going to have, they're not that worried about the adult children. But if you told them the impact that could have on their grandchildren, I think that could be a dialogue that will open the doors. I always one way that I can get people to consider hearing aids is that they'll be like, yeah, no, I'm not ready for that, even though they can't hear me, and what have you. And then I'll be like, don't you want to hear your grandchildren when they're talking to you? And oftentimes that opens their eyes and they make an appointment the next day. Okay. Really great statement there, GM. End of life conversations can bring peace. Jose says, I guess the only thing that counts is how the elder, mom or dad, felt about living and dying in a facility. I like to call them communities. They're not all the same, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Okay, Sonia, you're doing great. Dropping in the, she dropped in the, oh, whoops, I'm going to repost that because it's not to everyone. The Aging Life Care website. Martha says some parents have mental challenges, and it makes decision making so much harder. What approaches might be helpful? This is a great one, and like Sonia said, we should do this monthly. But aging life care managers can be a great resource if your parent has mental issues or has cognitive disorders. Reaching out for help, I would say, is probably the best ingredient for these types of challenges. Joining a support group, NAMI, the National Association of Mental Health, I think, has wonderful support groups so that you can share with other folks that might be on the same journey as a caregiver. Let's see, Mimi says, this has been great. I agree. Make these monthly conversations with a variety of speakers. You cannot touch this topic too much. Thank you. Cedar says every state has SHIP. In Virginia, which is Senior Health Insurance Program. In Virginia, it's called VICAP. It's a free government-funded Medicare counseling. No insurance salespeople may be part of the program, and you can get to that SHIP through the area agencies on aging that we talked about earlier. Oh, and I see here, Gary Graham says, can you refer me to a resource comparing Medicare Advantage plans to traditional Medicare plans? Cedar just referenced it there, Gary. You can see it in chat. I would start with the SHIP program in your state. That's a great first step. Ken Silverstein says, it's so important that caregivers and loved ones take care of themselves so they can be there for their loved one. Great statement there, Ken. Catherine says, a systems approach to elder care can be very enlightening. The Bowen theory of family systems is a great resource. I'm not familiar with the Bowen system, and so I'm looking that up, and I'll drop that link into chat, which will be on our recording link. Sonia says, some elders don't want to talk about the future because they believe their kids will figure it out. I bet you there's a few people in the audience right now that was their parents' plan. My kids will figure it out. And letting them know that can be very disruptive to future generations' lives. Nancy says, speaking as a family going through this challenge right now, our difficulty is getting our 90-plus-year-old parents on board with hiring an aging life care manager. Being depression babies, they are extremely resistant to the cost. They know they need help, but this is a hurdle that will be difficult to get over with them. Oh, and money is not a problem for them. So one idea, Nancy, and again, I'm not trying to spend anybody's money, but I could see, like, if I was in this role, is that maybe saying, hey, mom and dad, it's a gift from the kids, but don't tell them that. Just say it's a program or something. Maybe a way to get them to have a conversation with an aging life care manager and think that it's a free program or what have you. You guys are paying for the first few hours. I don't know. I've heard this one a lot, and we've got to come up with a creative way to make that happen. Jennifer says, our clients are often surprised to find out they need both legal power of attorney documents and financial attorney. In fact, forms at each financial institution, each bank, brokerage house, and insurance company may require these forms. And that's a lot. And that's another profession that I often hear people say they wish they knew about is, well, a good financial counselor, but daily money managers. Daily money managers can be very helpful in executing sort of bookkeeping type activities. If we've got low vision and it's hard to write the checks, the daily money manager can be very helpful. Whew. Oh, it's 1:04. We've gone over an hour. But I hope that the folks that are on the line thought that this was helpful. I thought it was pretty interesting and therapeutic. I don't know, Mary Lee and Glenna, what did you all think?
I think we resonated with a lot of people here, and the fact that people want to do it on a monthly basis is, I'm going to go back to the Bar Association and tell them we had a real winner in our topics, and so glad you picked up on it. So thank you for that.
Okay, great. And Glenna, thank you for being here as somebody that we could talk to about a real life situation, and being so transparent on that. And thanks to everybody, Craig and everybody in the audience that shared these personal journeys, because I think, the beauty is this is recorded, and if just one little nugget is something that somebody can use to prevent them from saying, I wish I knew, then it's a victory. So, all right, folks. Well, we'll see you at the next one. And like I said, I'll have this up at proaging.com later this afternoon. Thank you.